What is going on, guys? This is Earpugs, and in this video we are going to be covering an interesting class, which is the Retribution Paladin. In this guide I will be focusing mainly on your role as a Ret Pally, the strengths and weaknesses, and what your class brings to the table, nothing to do with gear. So what does a Ret Pally do in Arena? You play as an interesting mix with this class because you do have burst and big damage if you can connect to somebody, but you also offer your team a lot of utility. As a Ret, you're also going to need to have a lot of macros that are mainly target macros, like targeting the enemy with Repentance or targeting your teammate with Hand of Freedom, etc. So that is a little tricky to get used to if you've never played Arena before. But if you do put the time and effort in, it will pay off immensely. So as a Ret, you have a lot of utility that you bring to the table. For example, you have an ability called Hand of Freedom, which completely removes all kinds of snares or slows on a target that you put it on with a relatively short cooldown. Keep in mind that your Hand of Freedom is a magical effect, so a mage can actually steal it from you with Spell Steal, and it can also be dispelled. Here is a macro that will cancel your freedom with the push of a button that you can bind it to. You can also match that to Hand of Protection, etc. and make it an all-in-one macro. This is much better than right-clicking it off if you know a mage is going to steal it from you. You also have an ability called Cleanse. This removes a poison, a magic, or a disease effect, all with one push of a button, so that is very, very powerful. And as a Ret Paladin, you need to be dispelling your teammates, especially if you're running something like with a warrior. He needs constant uptime to be effective. You also have two CCs that have a pretty long cooldown, but if used correctly, can actually win arenas. And that is Hammer of Justice, which is a 10-yard stun, so you can actually do it from a little bit of a distance. It also doesn't break with any amount of damage, so you could 100-0 somebody in a Hodge. If you see somebody is already trinketed and they go behind a pillar and lost their healer, that's a great time to Hodge them because you can usually lock up a kill. You also have Repentance, which is a 6-second incapacitate that you can do from a 20-yard range, which is really, really helpful because it's an instant cast, and if you do it to somebody at the right time, it can really put a lot of pressure on them. These are both on 1-minute cooldowns, so you want to make sure you're doing it on purpose every time when you use them. Paladins also have Divine Shield, which is a bubble that they are famous for, so I don't need to go into too much detail with that. Keep in mind, Paladins, if there is a priest on the other team, they can use the ability Mass Dispel to remove that off of you. You also get Blessing of Protection as a secondary bubble, which is nice because you can use it on a teammate. And Bop is a very interesting ability because it will actually remove blinds as well as kidney shot and really any physical CC of any kind, like a stun. So you can use this offensively just as well as you can use it defensively. For example, let's say somebody disarms your teammate, you can immediately bop him and then he cancels it with a cancel aura macro and it just completely removes that disarm and he's back in action instantly. And on the inverse, if you're very behind and you're dying to melees, then you can bop yourself or whoever's dying and then it will stop them from taking damage. But be aware that this is dispellable just with a regular purge, so a shaman can purge you, a warlock's pet can even devour it with devour magic, and a priest can spam dispel you as well. When you are looking to get a kill, you also have a big cooldown called Avenging Wrath, often referred to as Wings, which increases your damage done by 30% for 20 seconds. If you pair this with Wind Fury Totem from a shaman and get a proc, you can do some huge bursts on people. Just make sure that you're going super aggro when you pop Wings, because if you have to go defensive in the next 60 seconds, you're unable to bubble due to Forbearance. You also have an ability called Seal of Blood. This is a seal that when activated makes you take a little bit of damage after every time you deal damage, and you can also force it with your Judgment. I'm not exactly sure down to the millisecond on how short the delay is, but it looks to me like it's about a quarter of a second. So if you saw a mage was about to polymorph you, in the very last part of that polymorph cast, if you were to judge them with Seal of Blood, you could break your own polymorph with this ability. Moving on to the weaknesses of the Ret Pally, I would say their biggest weakness is that they're very cooldown dependent. If you find yourself in a situation where you don't have Rep or Hodge or Wings, you're basically just a person who's going to spam Dispel and then auto-attack and Crusader Strike, so you can see the importance of making sure that you don't waste these abilities and you get cooldowns for using yours. Another disadvantage that Rets have is they're very RNG with the way that they deal damage. Generally speaking, you're just going to be using Seal of Command, hoping for the proc, and then if you're running with a Sham, hoping for the Wind Fury proc. So if you're getting unlucky and you're not getting those, your damage output is going to be pretty low. They're also very prone to being dispelled. So for example, almost everything they do can be dispelled, like Rep, Hodge, Freedom, even Bop, and even Divine Shield can be MD'd. So if you fight somebody who knows how to abuse this, you're going to find yourself in a situation where you're constantly needing to cleanse yourself because you never get freedom off, they're stealing your bops, so it's almost useless, and it can be very frustrating. This presents you with another weakness, because if you find yourself fighting a team with a priest, you know that Divine Shield is likely just going to be MD'd almost instantly, so once you get behind, it's kind of a slippery slope as a ret, and you really need to position yourself correctly. They also don't have a kick of any kind, so a healer can literally just free cast in front of you, just flash heal, flash heal, flash heal, and unless you're gonna Hodge them, you really have no way to stop it besides like a Blood Elf racial. So if you're designing a team comp and you're trying to pick out who you're gonna run with, why would you want to add a Ret Pally? Mainly for the utility that they provide with Freedom and Dispel, so if you're running with a Resto Sham or a Resto Druid for example, those classes cannot dispel magic. So adding a ret can fill in the gap there. They also offer some off heals for you if you get behind, along with Bop as an emergency button. They can also help reduce the damage your teammates are taking with Blessing of Sacrifice, which is helpful if you're trying to stay ahead, and are overall a great support class. Why would you not want to add a rep to your team? They don't give you an MS effect like a warrior or a hunter or a rogue would give you, so if you're looking for one of those and you're trying to run a cleave, it is a little tricky to add them in, and you would almost always want to pair with one of the three if you're trying to cleave people. Their sustained damage is also not that high, so if they have no wings and no Wind Fury totem, they don't do a lot of damage. Overall, I would say if you are looking to play a ret for TBC Arena, make sure you get your target macros and focus macros down for all of your abilities like the Rep, Hodge, Freedom your teammate, etc. And also have your cancel macro for your bop. And if you like doing multiple things, then Ret might be for you because they offer that utility I mentioned and can also do big burst damage if you can line them up right. It's always confusing starting with your keybinds and macros, but once you start using them over and over and you develop that muscle memory, then it becomes second nature. If you want to see more TBC Arena content, then definitely sub, and a like is always appreciated. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.